Hello and welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The 13th World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference kicked off today. Over 160 nations are attending the conference in Abu Dhabi. India has sought for a resolution on public stockholding of agri products. The issue is closely linked to the minimum support price regime for crops, which has evoked protests by farmers worldwide. Moreover, India will also lobby for an overhaul of dispute settlement mechanism, liberal regime for fisheries, and oppose an investment facilitation proposal backed by China. Abhimanyu Sharma joins us now on what is India's agenda at the meeting.
After a decline in 2023, global trade is set to grow by 3.3% in 2024 according to the WTO. While de-risking from China is still a priority, it is also clear that China's important position in supply chains is not going to change anytime soon. Global trade has significantly changed since the WTO was founded in 1995, as ministers from 160 member nations meet for the 13th WTO Ministerial Conference in Abu Dhabi. Here is a look at the key 5 issues slated to be discussed. Number 1 is agriculture. The European Union is unwilling to lower subsidies or import duties as being sought by the US, Brazil, Argentina, Australia and Canada. For India and several other developing countries, the focus will remain on ensuring a solution on the issue of public stock holding so that there is no constraint in procurement of food grain. A G33 ministerial statement has backed India's stand. There is also a demand to revise the reference price from the base year of 1986 to reflect the current market realities. The issue is closely linked to the minimum support price or the MSP regime for crops, which has evoked protests by farmers worldwide. The second issue is fisheries. The WTO agreement on fisheries subsidies was concluded at the previous ministerial, which had limited government subsidies on fishing in unregulated high seas and on vulnerable fishing stocks. While the EU had formally accepted the agreement, terming it crucial for sustainability, India has maintained that it can continue to support its small fishermen as the regulations are only for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. However, India is not in favor of any further disciplines and wants a liberal regime with a 25-year transition period for developing countries and has said that the current system benefits rich nations. The third issue is dispute settlement, where the entire dispute resolution system has been rendered as redundant due to the American opposition to appointments to the appellate body. India has been pitching for a comprehensive overhaul instead of a piecemeal approach. The fourth issue is investment facilitation, which is being pushed as part of the agenda by China and 120 other nations and is being opposed by India and South Africa. Last but clearly not the least is the issue of e-commerce moratorium and work program. Developed countries want the moratorium on levy of customs duty on electronic transmission, including movies and e-books, to continue. But India and several other developing countries want the moratorium to be lifted as it is resulting in a loss of around $10 billion in customs duty. India wants discussions to continue on the scope and objective of the e-commerce moratorium in view of many physical goods getting digitized over a course of time, and it's going to back the promotion of competition in e-commerce. While India is keen that issues around remittances and a regime for telemedicine and health workers are a part of the work program, it has opposed the inclusion of new issues like sustainability, environment, MSMEs and gender as disguised trade barriers.
All right, to take this forward, I'm now joined by Prabhash Ranjan, Professor and Vice Dean at the Jindal Global Law School, and Jayant Dasgupta, former Indian Ambassador to the WTO. Ambassador Dasgupta, let me begin by asking you about the issue of public stockholding. India is among the nations, among the G33 nations, seeking a permanent solution to the public stockholding issue. Explain us, why is this critical for India, and do you expect any kind of headway on this issue at the WTO Ministerial?
Well, the draft text which the Director General had circulated to all the ministers on the around the 16th of February, that is 10 days ago, that talks of having a resolution or a permanent solution to the public stockholding issue by the next ministerial. And I may remind you that this has been going on since the 10th ministerial, that is Nairobi 2015. Every ministerial, it takes stock of the efforts made and then it says maybe next ministerial. So I don't expect the public stockholding issue to get resolved in this ministerial. And unless there is earnestness shown by the naysayers, mainly the Cairns Group, the US, Canada and the others, I don't see a permanent solution emerging even by the next ministerial.
Right. Mr. Ranjan, if I can come to you, India is among the nations which has been opposing a China-led group which is pushing investment agendas as a trade issue. Why is this investment facilitation agreement so contentious? How can it harm countries like India?
Thank you, Parikshit, for inviting me to the show. I think when we talk about investment facilitation, we need to distinguish between two kinds of things. I mean, first is the substantive issue, which is investment facilitation or the agreement. Now, India's traditional position has always been that investment should be out of the WTO because the mandate of WTO is to focus on trade issues, and India's position is that investment is not part of the trade agenda. Now, having said this, I think if you look at the investment facilitation agreement closely, I mean, the text that has been agreed, there are several provisions in the facilitation agreement which India is already implementing as part of its liberal foreign investment regime to attract investment. So I think it is not so much about the facilitation agreement per se, but more about the larger concern that whether investment should be part of the WTO. India also has another concern that if investment facilitation becomes a part of the WTO today, then it is possible that in the future, investment protection might also be brought within the ambit of multilateral trading system, which India is clearly against. The second issue is the process. I mean, we all know that investment facilitation has been negotiated as part of what is known as the Joint Statement Initiative. Now, since WTO is a multilateral body, the larger question is that can a set of countries, say 120 or 130 countries, agree on something and then ask the entire WTO membership to agree to it? I think this is a larger process-related question, and India's stand on this question is that it should be done only when there is a multilateral mandate. And India's argument is that that mandate is missing when it comes to investment facilitation.
Right. Ambassador Dasgupta, coming to the issue of fishing, India has rejected any kind of multilateral curbs on activities of its 9 million fishermen. It has also said that developed nations should actually take more responsibility when it comes to overfishing. What is India's stand going to be, and how could the conversation on fishing continue at the WTO?
Well, the present fisheries subsidies agreement, which is in the draft stage, the first part of the agreement has already been agreed to in 2022, and that deals with illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing. India has supported that. The second part concerns two issues. One is overcapacity and overfishing, and the subsidies which could be given or could be subject to a phase-out period. And the second, of course, is the larger issue of special and differential treatment. On the issue of overcapacity and overfishing, the draft text is silent about distant water fishing. Now, as we all know, in the exclusive economic zone, which extends to 200 nautical miles from the coast of a country, the disciplines are all very well. But for distant water fishing, where a lot of fish stock is getting depleted and dangerously depleted for regeneration, there is no discipline which is sought to be enforced. And as far as industrial fleets are concerned, the developed countries and countries like China, Korea, Taiwan, they have already subsidized massively to build their industrial fleets, including not only ships, but landside infrastructure. So they will benefit from this. And of course, these same ships will also be used on the basis of licenses given by countries which do not have the capacity to exploit their own EEZs to fish in their waters. But India, which has hitherto remained confined to the territorial waters of 12 nautical miles and slightly beyond, and of course, there are some fishing vessels which go to the edge of the exclusive economic zone also. But India is not in a position to go out to the distant waters to fish. And the problem with this text is twofold. One, that India, if it agrees to the disciplines as they have been proposed, then it will never be able to subsidize the building of an industrial fleet, as the others have already succeeded in doing so. So in a sense, it is kicking away the ladder. The second aspect is that for its small artisanal fishermen, India wants a 25-year long phase out period. Now that has been put in square brackets as X, which may or may not be agreed to, and there may be negotiations for that. So this is where the matters stand at the moment. And it will all be subject to negotiations.
Right. So,
there are a group of developing countries which are supporting India's stand, and they also have a stake in this matter.
all right, so this continues to be a contentious issue. On the issue of dispute settlement, Professor Ranjan, the WTO decision-making has been in disarray because it has to work by consensus. The dispute settlement mechanism has not been functioning in an optimal manner. What kind of discussions do you expect at the WTO Ministerial? Can there be any breakthrough on this?
Yeah, so I think with dispute settlement, which has been recognized as the crown jewel of the WTO system, I think it has become a victim of its own success. The appellate body has performed spectacularly well in last 25 years. And I think that led to, the US killing the appellate body by repeatedly blocking the appointment of appellate body members. Now, today, as we speak, there have been informal discussions happening in Geneva on restoring the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism. But unfortunately, the discussions haven't focused on the restoration of the appellate body. The negotiations have focused on other aspects of the WTO's dispute settlement understanding. Now, India's keen demand and demand of several developing countries has been to restore the appellate body so that the two-tier dispute settlement mechanism process is put back in place. Now, we have some alternatives in place of the appellate body. We have the EU proposed and backed multi-party interim arbitration arrangement. But this is an ad hoc arrangement. Developing countries like India haven't joined it. They are not in favor of it. And I think the real issue is to get the appellate body back in place. The deadline to get this going is by the end of this year. So this ministerial is not really the deadline for that. But whether that will happen or not, I remain skeptical.
Right. Final questions now. Ambassador Dasgupta, realistically, which are some of the areas where you expect some consensus at the WTO? This is an election year. We will be cautious in the way we approach things. What kind of agreements, consensus do you expect?
Well, if I am optimistic, I feel that the second part of the fisheries agreement will get to a consensus decision. And India's concerns, which have been expressed, will get adequately addressed. That is the first part. The second issue is about the extension of the moratorium on electronic commerce, which is in a way linked to the issue of extension of a moratorium on situation and non-violation complaints against developing countries and LDCs for the TRIPS agreement. Now, electronic commerce, to my mind, though there are strong arguments against it, may get harvested in the form of another 2-year extension. It may not get stopped completely. So that is the second issue. And on the agriculture, I don't expect anything much. There will be a move to push forward the constitution of a working party to take up issues relating to market access and domestic subsidies. But that is fraught with a great deal of division. And as the chair has mentioned, the whole text which has been placed before the ministers is in square brackets. So I don't see any consensus emerging in there. So these are the 2-3 areas where I expect, and investment facilitation. If India, South Africa, and the others who are opposed to fundamental change in the way decisions are taken in the WTO, which are currently based on a multilateral
Okay.
consensus-based principle, if that
Right.
is opposed, then I don't think it will also get harvested.
All right, we've run out of time, but Ambassador Dasgupta and Professor Ranjan, thank you very much for joining us on News Center, giving us your view on the WTO Ministerial, which begins today. We're taking a short break, but coming